right, and welcome everybody to our session today with PlayPosit. This is Discovering the Power of PlayPosit Interactive Video. So I appreciate everyone being here today. And I wanted to just get started here by sharing in the chat just a little bit about what we'll be talking about. And so I'm going to be sharing this interactive handout with you in the chat. And don't worry if you're unable to access it right now. I'm going to be posting it multiple times throughout the training. And so feel free to review that handout while we just wait a couple of minutes here for everyone to join. And while we're getting started here in the chat, thank you. I would love to hear a little bit about what your experience is with PlayPosit so far. So in the chat, feel free to write in a 1 if you've never used it before, 2 if you've used it before, or 3 if you use it regularly. I do want to mention too that while people are still joining here, we're going to have a PlayPosit team member monitoring the chat. So please feel free to submit any questions that you have within that chat throughout our session today as well. Okay, great. Thanks for sharing. If anyone else wants to add into the chat at any time, please feel free to do so. But I just want to get started here and make the most of our time today. And so before we jump into our session, I'd love to just introduce myself. My name is Justin Colvin, and I'm one of the customer success managers here at WeVideo and PlayPosit. In my role here, I work to helping people get the most out of using both WeVideo and PlayPosit to enhance their learning and instruction. But today we're only going to be discussing the PlayPosit platform here. And on our agenda, I want to also highlight what we'll be talking about. So first, we're going to start with a little bit of background information on PlayPosit so that everyone has a more common understanding of the platform, how it operates, and why it can benefit your instruction. And after that, we'll dive in a bit deeper into building and designing a lesson with PlayPosit. Then we're going to take some time to discuss supports and additional resources. And again, I just want to remind everyone who's on the call or watching the stream that we have PlayPosit team members ready to help answer your questions that you have. So if you're here in this session live, please feel free to ask your questions throughout the presentation within our chat. And with all that said, let's go ahead and get started here. So first, I want to cover just a little bit of a PlayPosit overview with you all. The first thing that I want to share is that at its core, PlayPosit is an instructional design studio. So you can launch it within your LMS, then select a video from a private video host or a third-party source like YouTube or Vimeo, as long as your schools permit this. And from there, you can then add questions and different types of interactions within the video timeline. So what is PlayPosit? The PlayPosit platform is the instructional design studio where we can stream from a video source and create an overlay on top of that video. And so this overlay sits between the learner and the video hosts, such as Kaltura or YouTube. And it's allowing instructors to add interactivity to these videos. So the modular overlay means that the videos and interactions can be edited independently and individually. They can then be uniquely custom and consistent across lessons. And the beauty of this capability is that it can save instructors time in cases where the video content or the questions need to be updated versus having to build out content for each and every lesson that you're building throughout the year. So for example, you may have a video lesson that you want to reuse with the same questions, but using a different video. So you can easily load those same questions and just swap out the video or vice versa when the questions need updating rather than the video. During today's session, you're going to hear me use the word bulb a lot. And so what is a bulb? When you're streaming video through our interactive player, the end product is called a bulb. And bulbs can be assigned asynchronously as an individual self-paced learning object, a learner-made bulb for individual submission, or multiple bulbs and resources that can be combined into what we call a playlist. In times when synchronous instruction is needed, any bulb can be delivered through our broadcast functionality, and so this allows self-paced bulbs to be deployed at the instructor's pace. However, today we want to focus on just playlists and the platform itself. And so before we dive into creating a bulb, it's important that we take the time to discuss the foundational benefits of the PlayPosit experience. And so PlayPosit can be helpful with accountability, accessibility, and content digestion. In terms of accountability, the default is that fast forwarding and skipping are disabled. This ensures that the learners that are watching the full video. And so as we're going through some of this, I've adjusted those settings so that way we can, in these previews, maybe jump around and see these different interactions. However, the default is that those fast forwarding and skipping options are disabled. So another great accountability feature is that the video automatically pauses if a learner switches windows or tabs. This helps to ensure that they're staying present within the lesson. With PlayPosit, we also take accessibility very seriously. So in your bulb, you're able to create interactive transcripts within videos that instructors are creating. The interactive transcript is searchable, which is great if a learner is trying to locate some key information that is shared with them. We also have the option to include captions, and our tool is screen reader compatible. Finally, to help with content digestion, we have the embedded notepad, which allows learners to export their notes. This feature is great because it automatically includes, it's automatically included, in any of the PlayPosit experiences. Learners can take timestamp notes throughout the lesson and download them at the end for future reference. The notepad can also be monitored by the teacher, providing additional levels of accountability and insight into the student learning process. The best part about these benefits is that they exist even before we add any interactivity to our video lesson. Right out of the box, PlayPosit provides several ways to hold learners accountable, while we also provide layers of accessibility and built-in methods for digesting content. Now, with the learner experience, I want to dive in and show you just a little bit about this, and I'll provide you a link here in the chat as well. And so I want you to have the opportunity to do two things now. One is to experience a bulb from the learner's perspective, and the second is to see the monitor page where the data will be populated as learners engage with this PlayPosit content. And so to do this, please open up an incognito window. If you're unfamiliar with how to do that and you're accessing your computer, go up through Google Chrome at least, go to the file and open up a new tab, but make sure that is a new incognito tab. When you're done, feel free to download and explore the printable report. And additionally, you can pause periodically to look at my screen where I'll be showing the instructor view of the monitor page. And so here you'll see the learner data populate in real time. And before we get started, let me just throw in that link. And I will set a timer for 5 minutes for you all to jump in. Just give me 1 moment. Awesome. So I'll give everyone just a moment here to open that up in an incognito window, and then I'll go ahead and start the timer. And for anyone watching the stream later asynchronously, we're actually going to watch this together too. So you can follow along in case you hadn't opened up that tab. And so we'll follow along here and watch that together. So this is on called Derek Silver's how to start a movement, excuse me. And so you can see here right off the bat, we're already using a pause interaction to just talk a little bit about what the learners will be watching, who the presenter is. We have linked information included, so that's already embedded into the video that they're watching. And then what the objective of this lesson is, how many points this might be worth within your class, also including different tips below on how you can use different features within PlayPosit that I had mentioned, like taking notes on your notepad, accessing closed captions when needed, and watching the entire bulb to make sure that this is marked complete. And so to get started here, we would just
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED, we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course, you know.
So let's pause already here. You can see that we're getting prompted a question on the side. Let's watch a little bit further to hear what Derek Silvers has to say. And then we can,
a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed.
Okay, so we have one that's pausing here. We can write in and try our answer to submit here and see what we have to say. Okay, so we got this point corrected. You can see what points are being tracked. We also have this on the side, and this is more of a discussion prompt that we're answering anonymously here, but you can have it set up to where you would see, which students would be engaging, what answers they have. And so, have you ever started a movement? Yes, let's add some detail of when that might be. Dancing on an empty dance floor. And just adding in some of our answers, we can then submit that using our keyboard shortcut or just submitting. And now our response has been recorded. Now we can continue moving forward with the rest of the lesson.
But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends.
And so we're getting more bulbs that we can interact with throughout the video. So we're getting these pause points where it's asking our learners to reflect and answering different prompts such as multiple choice or discussion in this sense of where we have access to a rich text editor and we'll enter in this case, what role is most crucial? What is the most crucial part of starting a movement? Is it the leader or the follower, and why? And so you would be able to enter in your information here and answers, and then be able to submit that. And when you're doing this, you can see here that when I've entered in this information, that we get a star out of 2 points here. So that means that as a student, I'm seeing this and it's telling me that I haven't yet received points for this answer. It's then prompting the teachers later on, and what we'll cover within the monitor page, for instructors to go in and read their responses and provide the grade based on their answers, whether they've addressed what has been needed, or maybe in this case, I might need to review and answer differently later.
Friends. Now, if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not 2 nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important.
Again, and now we're getting a check all that applies. And so which of the following quotes here would resonate most with Derek Silvers? Is that a movement that is all about the people who follow through, a movement that's supported by one person, or good leaders that embrace their followers as equals. And so we can select multiple at a time. And then as we see here, we've got these answers correct. We can move forward with the rest. But I'd like to just fast forward a little bit through this.
It's important to show not just the leader. It's not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting.
Okay, and then we have more interactions, more bulbs that we can engage with here. But I want to switch back to just the presentation and sharing a little bit there of what's next. And so if we were to have completed this all the way through, what we're going to see is within a monitor page, and let me go ahead and share my screen with you so you can see that, is that when instructors log into their account, you're going to be able to look at the classes that this has been assigned to, and then look and see who has engaged with that bulb already. And so you can see here, we have a couple test students that have not yet started the assignment. We have a couple that have already, or they're in progress, some that have answered already. And you can see here, the first one is this pause interaction. There's no grade to be given there. That pause interaction was just to debrief of what we were learning or what we're expected to learn within that video that we're engaging with. Next, we have different types of discussion prompts, multiple choice, fill in the blanks, things of that sort. And as you can see, you're going to be able to see how long a student, for one, has engaged with that bulb altogether. You can also see individual times that they spent. And so here they spent 10 seconds to write in their first answer, 22 on the next, 37 here in that discussion prompt that we were working on. And you can see there's different colors letting the instructor know if they got this correct. So green obviously would be highlighted for any correct answer, red highlighted for incorrect answers, and that yellow is highlighted here for letting instructors know that they will need to go in and review their answers to then provide them with a grade accordingly. Awesome. And just please remember that if you do have any questions, feel free to throw that into our chat, as we do have a live customer success manager here at PlayPosit helping to answer that while I'm presenting here. The next thing that I want to share with you are some use cases here. And so let's take a look at some of our most common use cases from the perspective of a learner. So first, I want you to know that you don't need to completely redesign your course. It can be as easy and effective to integrate PlayPosit right into your teaching practice. And so here are 3 simple ways in which people use and derive value from PlayPosit, just to give you some ideas: skills practice, interactive video lecture, and lecture discussion. So we're going to be taking a closer look at these from the learner's perspective today. But I want to give a little bit more detail as each of these, as they're very important. And so within skills practice, this is great. And the skills practice is our first low lift use case. It's great when you want to model a new skill or a concept and give learners the opportunity to practice it. You can start with a video to model the new skill, then upload a worksheet for practice. After that, you can use quick interactions at the end of the bulb to allow learners to practice this skill. These interactions can be multiple choice or fill in the blank to allow for auto grading and real-time feedback. And this is a great way to check for understanding through independent practice, during class, or as a homework assignment. This option offers immediate learner feedback and makes individual practice more effective and allows teachers to really scale their impact by minimizing time on providing individual feedback or entering grades into their gradebook. The next is interactive video lectures. And so this is another great use case and for this option, you can select a video for students to learn from and then create interactions to maximize content digestion for the learner. The check for understanding questions provide an opportunity for real-time feedback for both correct and incorrect responses. This use case allows learners to maximize their content digestion with engaging questions, immediate feedback, and even the embedded notepad. This also allows teachers to gain qualitative insights to their learning process. And lastly, the lecture discussion. And so the final use case we're discussing here is that lecture discussion. And it's another way to use PlayPosit because you may already have recorded lecture content to use, and you can simply frame your lecture with a pause at the start, telling your learners about your objectives and goals for the lesson. And then you can add discussion interactions from our template gallery. The discussion interaction allows for students to collaborate asynchronously. And since learners have access to the notes functionality, they can take notes throughout the lecture and refer back to them at the end when completing their discussion contributions. So again, I just want to show a little bit of insight here, and each of these use cases come with a quick video that we can watch. This one here is our first skills practice. And so again, just as a reminder, this is where we're going to create a video to model a new skill, add interactions to it. And so here in this video, the instructor is going to model how to solve a two-step algebra equation using inverse operations. And so let's play that and we'll talk along with it. And so at the end of the bulb, they're going to be linked to a worksheet for students to be able to download and view. Then they created some quick fill in the blank questions that we're going to see here. And so that's going to correspond to the worksheet. And this allows, again, for the assignments to be graded instantly. The teacher can then use this data to inform their students during the next day's lesson. Perfect. And so another use case is the interactive video lecture. And so in this example, the instructor, let's go ahead and play this so we can talk along with it. Perfect. So in this example, the instructor has selected a 5-minute video for students to learn from, and throughout the video, the instructor's created interaction gain qualitative insights into their learning. And I just want to pause really quickly to share what we're seeing here on screen. And so in the beginning, we can see that there are key terms and vocabulary, that were included. And so the learner can then copy and paste these directly into their embedded notepad, which is going to be very helpful later when they're completing the content checkpoints in case there's anything that they need or want to refer back to. And as we're watching along here, we're going to see that uh, there's going to be these check for understanding questions. And so for that first one that we're seeing right now on screen, this is an auto-graded um, multiple choice question. And so this is an opportunity for real-time feedback for both those correct and incorrect responses. And so next we're seeing this free response question. So when answering the question, the learner has access to our rich text editor, like I had mentioned earlier, and allows them to format the text in their response, creating a bulleted list or including an audio recording. And then the final here is that this is a series of fill in the blank questions. This is great for vocabulary matching activities, and the learner can then refer back to their notes from earlier that we included within that first pause interaction to make sure that they're answering these correctly. Perfect. And then at the end there, you can see that we've completed this bulb successfully. We can see which answers have been graded and received real-time feedback on. And if there was any fill in the, or excuse me, not fill in the blank, but discussion questions, as I mentioned earlier, those would need to be something that the instructor will then just manually apply a grade for. Oops, excuse me, I'm sorry. Okay. And the final use case that we're going to be discussing here is that lecture discussion. So this is another easy way to use PlayPosit because you may have already recorded this lecture content to use, and you can simply frame it in a lecture with a pause at the start, telling your learners, again, about your objectives and goals for the lesson. Then you can add different discussion interactions from our template gallery. And so this is something that we'll talk more about when we're building a bulb together. Later in the session. And so that discussion interaction allows students to collaborate asynchronously. It can be pre-made, and so all that you need to decide on is when you want to apply participation points or even manually score based on the quality of the contribution of your learners. And since learners have access to the notes functionality, they can take notes throughout that lecture and refer back to them at the end when completing their discussion contribution. So first, we're seeing that pause interaction and learning a little bit about what we'll be listening to today and engaging with here. Let me just make sure. Seeing that some of the audio wasn't being picked up there from the video, so I'm just going to stop sharing for a quick moment and then re-share my screen. I apologize for that.
But you can look around, and what happens then is it makes it very immersive. Now, back then, it wasn't the right time, and it was overshadowed by the rise of the internet. But we could still see, even then, that there was a future for this technology. So over the last 10 years, I've been working in technologies that can augment us, and most of my work has been in disability. I've worked on a smart wheelchair for my PhD in 2012, and this smart wheelchair was allowing you to, or a person who needed it, I've mostly worked in disability on communication, mobility, and connection, but this allowed you to control the wheelchair with the mind, and the wheelchair could see and think for itself like a robot. So it had robotics and artificial intelligence in there as well. Now, what was really interesting is the camera that you can see on the front, the yellow camera, that's a stereoscopic vision system. Now, what it has is two cameras that act just like our own eyes. They take two different images, put them on top of each other, and with that, just like we can see in 3 dimensions, it can project those pixels into the 3rd dimension, giving it a 3rd ordinate and allowing a very low quality 3-dimensional photo. Now, this was something I found on the front of the laptop of the wheelchair. I found this the other day from 2008. I have no idea what I was doing here, but that's me. I think I'm holding some recycling boxes. But what you could see there is you can rotate 3-dimensional space because it's a 3D point cloud, so all those pixels reside in 3-dimensional space. Now, that was very interesting, but the technology itself has actually advanced a lot since then. Now, the rise of virtual reality came back again in 2012 with the Oculus Rift. Has anyone heard of this? Great. Okay, this is good. So we're on board with this. That's about half the crowd, by the way, of what I just saw. Now, when I first tried the Oculus Rift, I put this device on my head, and like the TV being strapped to the face, it was a lot better than it used to be. Much, much better. What I found was I found myself in a virtual apartment, and I was watching a virtual TV. And on this TV, there was a music video. Now, I got really immersed in it, and then I started to realize when it finished that I was still sitting in a virtual apartment. And then I took the device off, back to the real world. But the interesting thing was, I remember this as if it was a memory, as if I had experienced it. And that's when I realized it was so incredibly powerful. So with that type of power, in that sort of technology, combined with the 3D point clouds from 2008, it made me realize that we are standing at the verge of a massive technological revolution. We could potentially realize certain ideas, as wacky as they are, certain ideas like being able to create a virtual copy of ourselves.
I'll just play in the last little bit of this video here. You can see that we're starting to have this discussion answered. We have responses to the initial answer. So students are able to engage within this discussion in multiple ways. And just to review, all you really need for this use case is 3 things: a video lecture, an intro to frame that lesson, and a discussion prompt at the end. And to streamline this process in the future, all you need to do for the next lecture is to copy your bulb and replace the video lecture with your new content. But you can keep a lot of those same interactions and reuse them in different ways. Okay, so now it's time to build a bulb together. And so I'm going to be placing that interaction handout in the chat again, in case you'd like to reference it. Additionally, please continue to ask your questions in the chat if you have any. And before we jump into the designer to build a bulb, I want to be sure to show you the big picture and that workflow. And so before you open PlayPosit, you should have an idea of your video content that you'll be using. So maybe a video that you're creating via screen or lecture recording, or it could be a video that you're accessing from a third-party resource such as YouTube or Vimeo. Then you can access the PlayPosit designer through the learning management system that you're currently using, or directly from the PlayPosit website if your organization doesn't use an LMS. And from there, you can select the video content, and after that, you can add interactions to enhance that learning experience. Finally, you'll select the assignment type, either it being self-paced, which is asynchronous, or broadcast, which is synchronous. And so I'm going to be showing you the workflow using Canvas, since this is one of our most commonly used learning management systems. However, the workflow is very similar for any LMS, and the interactive handout that's in the chat will have resources for each LMS workflow. And once we enter the PlayPosit designer, the workflow will be identical virtually for any LMS. Okay, and so as we jump into our Canvas account here, we're going to create an assignment. We have our demo assignment. We can use the rich text editor that's been included here to really map out our instructions and what objectives we have for our students, how they'll engage. So this is just to give you an idea of what we can do. We can also use this space as a way to link in different resources that we have. And so if we're linking in anything from a course link to an external link, we have access to do so from this view. You saw that in some of the pause interactions that we also included images or different ways to record ourselves. And so this might be something that we're including any virtual or video instructions, maybe music content, things of that sort that can be included directly here within that assignment. We can then scroll down just a bit here to assign our points, which assignment group this is going to, and we can display our grades, whether they be points, percentages, complete, incomplete, etc. Now, to get in here, we need to first have our online submission type, and then we will go and, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. we want to change this from the initial online to external tool. And then from the external tool, what we're doing is we're going to search for what we have already connected. So once we find PlayPosit, we can select that and give that just a moment to load. And so here we're going to first enter PlayPosit as there's nothing been selected yet. We can then build a new bulb, which we will get to. Or what we can do is we can use this as we've already watched earlier on how to start a movement. You can take any bulb that's been created and set a bulb link. And so here I'm going to link in what I've already created, those interactions that I've made, and link that directly into this assignment here. And so this, again, can be either self-paced or live broadcast. Here we're going to keep that as self-paced, and then we can link that into our assignment. So that's just one way that we're going to be able to use our Canvas Studio to link in our PlayPosit bulb. And then here with our submission type, how many attempts are we providing? Is there going to be an unlimited amount of tries, or are we going to limit that to 1 attempt or maybe 5 attempts, for example? We can then assign and access managing our due dates and where we want this assigned to. And so this is assigned to everybody right now, but if there were specific people or different sections, like if we had our classes pre-built in Canvas or your selected LMS, then you would select and assign it directly into that class here. We can then change our due date and time. So let's make that for tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. And then it's going to be available today. Here right now at 12:30. And so then we can go through, we can apply those changes. And then here, we can either save this and keep this in a draft state until we're ready to really send this out to our students, or we can save and publish. And so once we save and publish, that's going to go live. Here, you can go up to the top and view this as your student. And so you can see our objectives, what we'll need to do, if there were any resources that were included, and then we would be able to preview the video here as a student and see what they see. Now, this is what they would access when they jump in. They're going to, of course, have their video loaded right below, and then they're attempting right now as the test student. So nothing in this view is being saved, but you can at least get an idea of what they will experience once your bulbs go live to them. You can see when we've assigned this to be turned in by, and then how many attempts they are allowed to how many attempts they have already used. Now, if we leave that student view and go back to the previous page we were on, what you're going to see here too is that there is that monitor page. And so just give this a moment to load up. We would be able to download a CSV of this content that we are assigning to our students. We can also preview that video here in this view. And we can also go back to that monitor page to review any of that student engagement and see where they have started to jump in, answer these bulbs, and those different interactions that we've assigned throughout that video. Now, if you're just looking to create a bulb from scratch, let me show you that view right now and how we can do that. Just one moment here. Okay, and so now we're in my PlayPosit dashboard. And so for you, it would be very similar. If you're brand new to the platform, it might be looking a little more blank for you. But up here at the top, what we want to do first is we want to go and create a new bulb. If you select from the drop down, there might be options for you to create learner-made bulbs or peer review assignments, depending on your PlayPosit platform. But here we have the ability to add a new bulb. And so from this view, we're going to first, as we've mentioned, we want to select the video that we might have in mind. And so we're going to use something that we've either recorded ourselves, maybe it's something that we're finding or that we created previously, or that we have access to something like YouTube or Vimeo. And then from here, we'll use YouTube, for example, and we can use the search bar to search specific key terms and find videos that way. So, whoops, let's see, did not share the right tab, so let me start over. I apologize for that. Let me jump back really quickly. Okay, so when we're creating a new bulb, this is what we're going to see. We're going to first have our video segment. Then what we can do is we can add video here. And we can then select YouTube for that example. Using that search bar here, we can look up those key terms that I was mentioning, like let's use TED Talks still for this example, and why sleep is your superpower. So now we have selected our video. This is going to give us our first video that we want to start using before we start adding any type of interaction to it. What you'll see here is that we have our video, we can preview it, we can adjust the title if we needed to. There's also customization of this where, excuse me, we can jump in, and if there's any available YouTube captions that we can include that, or if we have already VTT files that we can upload ourselves. Now, let's go back, and we have selected this as our video source. The first thing that you'll see now is that we've added one video here. If we go in and use this to edit, we're going to be able to edit the video segment. And so this is 19 minutes and 18 seconds. We might only want to adjust this to be, let's say, 5 minutes worth of this video. And so we would be able to adjust that within the trim and crop function. If you go up to the top, over to the right, you'll be able to see how you can crop the video, but also having this bar down on the bottom will allow you to adjust this green bar here. And so let's say it was a really important topic that they're discussing here at 11 minutes and 30 seconds. And we want to adjust this red bar now to 15 flat. And so here we've adjusted the time that we're going to use for this video segment. You can also see that we can add additional videos to the same video. And so it's creating this playlist. And then we can get into different interactions. And what you've seen today already is having the ability to add multiple choice, check all, free response, fill in the blank, polls and discussions, as well as using things like the pause interaction or web embeds or PDF files that we want to engage with or have our students engage with as they're watching these videos. And so here we can select, let's say, multiple choice and use this, for example. By default, you can see that it's left blank, but we can fill this in and ask our question to our students. And then we would have our ability to fill in the different fields for answers. And so we have answer 1, answer 2. If there's any additional options that we want to include here, we can do so. And then with any of these, there's a couple ways that we can add more engagement. So like I had shown you earlier, there's ways that you can add instant feedback. And so here for correct and incorrect answers, we just go to this gear, and then from here we can add our feedback. Then you can do this with all of those answer prompts. You can also, for any incorrect answers, add maybe a jump. And so those jump interactions will help to send students back to the previous interaction or to the beginning of the video. So that way they can either have another attempt or they just need to review this content before continuing forward with the rest of the assignment. Now you can select the correct answer, and from this point we can then move on. And so now we have created our first interaction. If you're creating multiple or you want to use the template gallery, you can access that here at the top. And so instead of taking the time to create your own interactions, you can use the template gallery to see what has already been created by PlayPosit. So there's things for learner feedback, adding a poll question at the end of the bulb so that learners are able to rate their experience watching this. And then that's followed by a free response question where they can provide more detail of their experience. Now, learner notes is more of a reflective pause and more of a hotspot in the beginning of the bulb to teach learners how to use PlayPosit notes and those features. The learner experience is going to add 5 reflective pause interactions with instructions for finding notes, playback settings, and a reminder to watch until the end to be sure that they are marked complete. Discussions, adding a discussion form in the sidebar that lasts for the entire bulb so that learners can comment at any time, and pre-post assignment and summative assessments. So these are different ways that you can engage with your learners using what's already been created. And so we can take some of this and use, let's say, that discussion form and apply that template directly into our video here. And so we're going to apply that. Then we can go ahead and review and make sure that everything looks good to us. Again, we can adjust the title if there's a learning objective that we want to add, maybe for a specific class, then we can start to add that in, or any additional details. You can also use the tags. And so looking for keywords, again, this is going to be for STEM or something else like, let's say, keywords. Cool. Your target audience. And so moving on, maybe this is going to be for your specific grade levels. We have both K through 12 and higher ed. And then if there's a subject that you want to tag this on, then we can look for something else and add that here. And so there can be multiple added at the same time, and then save those changes. And then from here, we can then save and exit, and we have now created our first bulb together. Awesome. So I just want to check back in if there's any questions or anything as we're starting to wrap up here on our session. I just want to make sure everyone is understanding how they're able to create a bulb, as well as monitoring data, which is our next point that we'll cover right now. So learner data is collected in real time. If your bulb contains auto-graded interactions, they're going to be synced to your LMS gradebook once learners create their bulb or engage with it. On the PlayPosit monitor page, you can then review learner data and complete any manual grading as necessary. And so let me just show you what that looks like here. And so as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, you can see what students have engaged, how long it took them to complete the assignment, if anyone's in progress or hasn't started. And then with each of those interactions, you're able to see how long they were spending on each of those interactions. And so it's really meant for instructors to feel that they have a better sense of understanding where their students are and what they're learning, what they're able to absorb from the content that's being shared or engaged with. In our last couple of minutes here, I just want to share a few different resources that you all have available as well. And so we have customer resources that are asynchronous, such as the PlayPosit Academy. And so we have a customer resource page that can be accessed from the menu within PlayPosit. And so if you're looking for that, it's the last option on the left-hand side of the screen. And I can also share a direct link into our chat here, so you have direct access to that as well. So take a look at that. We have professional learning that's available through a webinar series, instructional ideas such as the use case library to give your instructors more of an idea of what PlayPosit can be used for and has been used for successfully already. We also have support using knowledge base articles, as well as our support team that are here and happy to help with anything that might be happening within your schools. We also have YouTube tutorials, and so this is another great resource that's going to contain several short tutorials and another link that I'll be sharing in the chat with you here. And finally, we have live office hours that happen twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we have an expert, a resident PlayPosit expert, excuse me, that's available to answer these questions and provide support at those times. And lastly, I would love to just throw in the chat a feedback form for those of you who were here in attendance, and just to let us know what your feedback might be on today's session. I really appreciate everyone's time today. And before we sign off here, I just want to share what's to be looking forward to as we get into the fall and our new webinars that we'll be releasing. And so we have more great webinars that are scheduled, and we'd love to see you there. And so I'll again throw in the link so that way you can check that out in the chat and see what upcoming topics are coming up and what you might have most interest in attending in the future. And so I just want to thank everyone for their time today. Thank you so much. And if there are any questions, please feel free. You can always use the chat or reach out to us directly. So I'll just hang on for a couple more minutes here in case there's any pressing questions, but I appreciate everyone's time today and thank you so much.